The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome to Excel for HR. You're learning with Mo Jones, IT professional and educator. If you're an HR professional, then this course is made just for you. Here's what we'll explore today for Module 1. We'll take a look at text functions. How can we use text functions to clean up or improve our data set? We'll take a look at formulas. We'll also use some really useful functions. We'll also take a look at charts. And then finally, we'll take a look at how we can use a three-dimensional tool to consolidate different worksheets into one. Go ahead and grab the practice file. Make sure to download it and open it and come right back and we'll dive right in.
Looking to support our channel and get a great deal? Become a member today to unlock ad-free videos. That's right, your favorite courses without a single ad. Interested in a specific video? Purchase one of our ad-free courses individually. Looking for even more? Gain access to exams, certificates, and exclusive content at LearnitAnytime.com. More information can be found in the video description below.
I just opened up my practice file. Now, as we can see, we have several worksheets here on the bottom. So the very first one is text functions. And we'll learn about the text to columns feature. We'll take a look at flash fill. And we'll also take a look at the today function. Then we'll move on over to formulas, functions, XLOOKUP, inserting charts, and then we'll take a look at a consolidation tool that will consolidate all three of these reports into one cohesive report. On the very first worksheet tab here is text functions. So here is our sample HR dataset. We have the employee number, the name, the location, the hire date, the pay rate, and the hours as well. So the first thing we would like to do is sometimes when data is exported from one system to the next, the data does not always come out the way that you expect it to. So in this case, we were expecting the first name and the last name to be in two separate columns. We can see that's not the case here. They're both in one column in column B. So we'll take a look at a tool that we can use to export the first name and the last name from column B into column C and column D. The first tool we'll take a look at is on the Data tab. So if you click on the Data tab and we head on over to the Data Tools command group, we have a tool called Text to Columns. That's what we want to use. If I just move my mouse over it, it tells me exactly what it does. Split a single column of text into multiple columns. So the first step is to choose the data that I want to extract or split into different columns here. I can either choose all of these names or I can just do it one by one. I'm actually going to go ahead and choose all of them. So I'll highlight all of my names here. Then I'll go ahead and run my text to columns tool. It's a three-step wizard. This is step 1 of 3. It's just asking us, how can we describe our data? Do we have characters such as commas or tabs or spaces? Most of the time, we'll choose this option. For fixed width, this allows you to basically align the columns wherever you want to. We'll take advantage of the spaces that are in here to split the actual column. I'll go ahead and press next. Now, if I take a look at my data set here, here's a preview of what the output would look like. We can see they're still in one cell here. Now, I don't have any commas in here. I don't have any semicolons. But as soon as I click on the space here, I can see that it's inserting a column where there is a space. Now I can actually scroll through my records here to make sure everything looks okay. I'll go ahead and click on next. And so here's the output. The only thing I need to do now is change the location. So where do I want to place the results? I want to place it here in the first available cell in column C, which is C2. We've completed step 3. I'll go ahead and press finish and let's see what happens here. It tells me that there's data there, just some formatting. It's okay. I'll just go ahead and press OK. And there we go. We've extracted or split those names into 2 columns. So here's Edwin and then Johnson. If I scroll down, I'll do a quick test here. I'll go to the last record. Here is Ernie Chandler. So that is the text to column tool. So remember, you can either do one at a time or you can do a mass export as well. Let's continue working with this data set. In column F, I want to use a tool called flash fill to extract the state from the actual location. So again, this is bad data. We have the city and the state in one column. Now we can go ahead and extract the state so that we can have more reporting capabilities. So to do that, I can use flash fill. Now flash fill works several ways. Flash fill can be found in the data tools command group as well. And it's this little icon here that has a little lightning bolt going through a table. That is flash fill. So I can either run flash fill manually. I can also use the shortcut Control E to run flash fill, or I can go ahead and just allow Excel to pick up on a pattern and complete the pattern for me. So I want to go ahead and extract the state from column E. So the first one is New Mexico. So I'll go ahead and type NM. And let's see if Excel will pick up on the pattern for me. I'll start typing T for Texas. And look at that. So notice how it's offering to extract the remaining states for me. So it already picked up on the pattern. So flash fill looks to the left of your data. It senses a pattern. Once it finds the pattern, it will offer to automatically fill that pattern for you. Or if it doesn't work, you can go ahead and on a blank cell, you can run flash fill, or you can use the shortcut to run flash fill as well. I'm going to go ahead and press enter to accept all of those. Then I'll give it a quick test. So I'll press the enter key. So you can see it's extracting all of those states for me. As soon as you run flash fill, you receive a flash fills option box here. And I can either undo the flash fill, I can accept the suggestions if it got everything right, or I can select all of these cells here. I'm going to undo the flash fill because I want to go ahead and run this manually. So I've extracted the first 2 states here. On the next blank cell here, I'll go ahead and run flash fill manually. As we can see, it picked up on the pattern here as well. So flash fill looks to the left for a pattern. Once it senses the pattern, it will offer it for you. If it does not pick up on the pattern right away, you'll get a message that says we looked at the data next to your selection and did not see a pattern. Just need to enter a couple of more examples and run flash fill again until it picks up on the pattern for you. Sometimes when you run flash fill, depending on what you're trying to do, you'll be surprised to see what type of patterns flash fill can actually recognize and recreate for you. You may need to retrain. So if the output is not correct, you can just make the correction in the cell and it will retrain the flash fill to update the pattern and apply it there as well. So that is flash fill. Our data set is looking pretty good so far. We've extracted the first and last name. We've extracted the state here as well. Now let's go ahead and calculate the length of service. Now the length of service, we do have the hire date here. So what we can do is, because dates are actually stored as numerical values in Excel, we can perform calculations on a particular date. So for example, let's say I want to add, 3 years to this date. I can type in the cell and I can say something like equals this date plus, let's just do 30 days. And it gives me the new date, right? So 30 days from December 2nd, 2020 brings me to January 1st of 2021. Well, what we want to do is we want to perform a calculation. So if we want to perform a calculation, we need to use the equal sign. So if I type the equal sign in here, I'm letting Excel know that I want to perform a particular calculation. So what I would like to do is my calculation is going to subtract the current date minus the hire date. And that will give me the number of days of service. So this will be the length of service in terms of days. But I need a way to always have today's date. So for that, I'm going to use a function that's called today. Today will always give you the current date for that particular day. So if I click in here and I just simply enter the today function, I'll say equal today. There's the today function. So it returns the current date formatted as a date. I'll go ahead and open my parentheses and close my parentheses to activate the function. And there you go. So it always gives us the current date. As you can see, I have it here in cell M2. A simple today function gives us the date. So now what I can do, I already have what I need. I have the current date and I have the hire date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and perform a calculation. I'll go ahead and calculate the first length of service here. So it equals the current date, which is in cell M2, minus the hire date, which is in cell G2. So what is the amount of days between these two dates? I'll go ahead and press the enter key. And it gives me 1,268.8 days. Right. So that's fine, but I'll go ahead and convert this to a whole number. I'll click on the Home tab and I'll remove the decimal there. So it rounds it up to 1,269 as well. So now what I can do, I can go ahead and autofill that pattern down. But if I autofill down, it's going to move away from the cell M2. It's going to keep going down. So I'm going to absolute reference cell M2. To do that, I'll go back to the original formula here. And here's cell M2. I'll press the F4 key on my keyboard. And that absolute references that cell for me. So notice $M, $2. That's telling Excel to lock on to column M and lock on to row 2. In the end, it's cell M2. So I've made the correction for that formula. I'll go ahead and press enter. And now I can go ahead and grab the fill handle. It's a little square here on the bottom right of every cell. I'll go ahead and drag that down. And it's going to calculate the length of service for me. So I'll go ahead and grab this and I'll pull it down. And there we go. So here are all of the length of service for each of my employees here as well. Let's head on over to our formulas tab. We have an extension of our existing data set here. We want to go ahead and calculate the gross pay. We'll also calculate the amount of time off remaining. So each employee has 20 days. So we'll go ahead and calculate the amount of days remaining based on the amount of time that's already used. And then we'll see how we can use a really nice tool to quickly enter data into this data set by using a form. So the first calculation here that I'll make is the gross pay. Now remember, to start a calculation, we need to use the equal sign. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and it's going to be the pay rate multiplied by the hours. So the pay rate is expressed here in cell E2, and the hours is expressed in cell F2. So therefore, my formula is going to be equals E2 times F2. So that will give me my answer. Once I get that, I can go ahead and autofill down this calculation here as well. Now there's different operators. So for addition, we have the plus sign. For subtraction, we have the minus sign. Multiplication, we have the asterisk. And for division, we have the /. So these are the 4 basic mathematical operators. I'll go ahead and enter my gross pay. So I'll click on cell G2. I'll type the equal sign, and I'll use the cell reference. So I can click on the cell. So it puts the name of the cell for me, which is E2. I'll type my asterisk, and I can either type the name of the cell, which is F2, or I can click on it. So either one works. Either way, my formula is E2 times F2. I'll go ahead and press the Enter key. So there's my first answer. So for Edwin Johnson, $26.58 per hour times 25 hours for the work week comes out to that amount. Now I can go ahead and autofill down. Because I actually have data to the left, I can actually just double click on my fill handle here, and it will automatically fill down for me as well. So you can either pull it down manually, or if you double click on it, as long as you have data to the left, it will fill down for you. So there are my gross pays. Let's go ahead and calculate the amount of days remaining. So for this one, it's going to be the days allotted. So the minus the days used. Cell references for those, we have, looks like K2 and H2. So therefore my formula is going to equal K2 minus H2. Now this number is fixed, so we need to actually absolute reference this cell here as well. So it's going to be $K. It's going to be $K, $2, and we're good to go. Let's go ahead and autofill down without absolute referencing that cell, and let's see what happens. So I'll go ahead and enter my calculation in here. So equals K2 minus H2. So it should give me 18. 20 minus 2 is 18. And there you go. Now look what happens if I autofill down. Just a quick tidbit on absolute referencing here. So I get some weird numbers. I know that 20 minus 18 is not minus 18. I know that 20 minus 4 is not minus 4. When you enter calculations, if you want to take a look at the formula, just double click on the cell and we can see what's happening here. It's supposed to be, so this is correct. We have the correct cell, right? So the days used on row 3, but we don't want this. We don't want K3. We want to remain on K2. So every row is going to keep moving away from that number. So we need to absolute reference it. We already know how to do that. I'll click on the first formula here. I'll go ahead and absolute reference my K2. I'll press F4 on my keyboard and I'm good to go. Now I'll go ahead and press enter. And if I autofill down, this shows me the days remaining for all of my employees here as well. So we're good to go. I'll just go ahead and center this text. So those are 2 calculations that can help us to answer some questions on our data set. Now, scrolling through records and entering data in an Excel worksheet can be a pretty daunting task sometimes, especially if you have a lot of records. So it would be nice if we can just have a nice condensed form that we can use where we can kind of just scroll through our records, some buttons that we can use to maybe scroll through records, find a record, delete a record, or even add a new record. And over here on the left, we'll have all those fields displayed with the actual information. Well, in the past, we had to use VBA and spend hours designing and programming and coding an actual form. But we can actually insert a form that will automatically be created for us that will be tied to the data that's on this worksheet. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and add the form command to my quick access toolbar. So my quick access toolbar is up here. If I hover over it, I can click on it. And down towards the bottom, I have more commands. So I'll click on more commands. This will bring up my Excel options window. So here's my Excel options. I can see that I'm currently on the quick access toolbar pane here. As you can see, I just have a few items on my quick access toolbar. Well, I want to go ahead and add the form. So it's most likely not going to show on this short list here. So I'll change it from popular commands to all commands. Here's the all commands here. Once the list refreshes, here are all the commands that are available. I want the form, so I'll type the letter F. So that brings me down to the F section here. So I'll scroll down and look for the form icon. And here it is right here. I'll go ahead and add that to my quick access toolbar. And I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and press OK. So now here is my form. And now I can use that form on any data set now that I have. So if I wanted to add another record in here, or maybe just modify a record, I can do that. I'll click inside of my data set and I'll click on the form here. And look at that. So it pops up the form right away. It shows all the fields for the form: employee number, name, location, hire date, pay rate, hours. If a field is a calculation, it just shows the data. You cannot enter the data there. That makes sense. So what if I wanted to make a change here for Edwin Johnson? Let's say Edwin Johnson has used 8 days. I'll go ahead and press enter. And we can see that that record updated automatically here. So Edwin now has 8, now has 12 days remaining as well. So it's showing me the record that I'm currently on. I can go ahead and go to the next. So if I click on find next here, it goes to my third record, which is Wade Maynard. And I can keep on going. Now, if I want to, I can delete a record and I can also add a new record. I'm going to go ahead and quickly add a new record here and let's see how that works. So I'll click on new and I'll just put in a number in here. I'll just put in 1001. And just put some data in here. So here's my record. I'll go ahead and press the enter key. And let's see. I'll go ahead and close my form here. And let's go down to the end of the data set. And here's my record. So pretty cool. To get the form back, I just need to click on the data set again and I can open the form. And so this is, we have some nice options in here as well. Feel free to click on the question mark here on the top of the form and just be on the lookout for any new features that are available and we're good to go. Let's take it a step higher. We've used some basic calculations. We've used one function so far, which is the today function. But let's take a look at how we can use some more conditional functions to return values from a data set. In this case, we'll take a look at some conditional functions. So we have, this is a professional development kind of worksheet here. So we have the type of program that was taken by a particular employee from a particular department and the actual cost. So Brandy Turner completed the leadership program and the total cost was $24.85.54. On row 10, Christina Hubbard completed the computer skills program from the accounting department in the amount of $21.95.62. So we want to create a little dashboard here that we can answer some questions. Like if we enter an employee in here, we can count the amount of programs that the employee completed. We can also answer another question. So based on the employee, what were the total costs for the programs taken by that employee? What were the total costs for programs based on department? And also, what is the average cost for an actual program? So I'll go ahead and get this set up here. But before we do that, let's just take a look at the simple if statement. So the if function, basically it checks to see if a condition is true. If the condition is true, we can just simply return true, or we can perform a calculation, or we can provide some custom text. Or if it's false, we can say false or do something else as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and place some values here. So I'll put one value in here. I'll put, let's say 1500. And then in the other cell, I'll put 2000. Okay. So 1500, let's say this is the cell. And for 2000, this is the actual goal. So we just want to write a simple if statement. So basically, if the cell is greater than the goal, then we'll just say true. If it's not greater than the goal, then we'll say false. So I'll go ahead and click on the Formulas tab here, and I'll go ahead and insert a function. At the top, I'll look for my if function, and I'll press go. Here's the if function. I'll go ahead and press OK. So welcome to the function arguments box for the if function. The function arguments box tells us the name of the function, what the function does, and here are the 3 arguments that it's asking for. So the first part of the if statement is the logical test, where a logical test is, we want to focus on the cell reference, is the cell value, is it greater than or equal to the goal, which is right here. So to express that, my logical test is I'm concerned about the cell, which is in K5. Is that greater than or equal to the goal, which is in cell K6? Excel has already evaluated that statement for us. It's telling us that that is false because 1500 is less than 2000, not greater than or equal to. So if it's true, in quotes, I'll just say yes. And here I'll say no. So the result is going to be no, because we've already tested that condition. It's determined that it's false, so therefore the answer is no. I'll go ahead and press OK. And there we go. Now if I change this value, let's say the next instance, this is 2100, we can see that the answer changes to yes here. So that is the basic if function. And that is the foundation for the other functions here that we'll be using to answer these different questions, such as the Countif function, the SUMIF function, and the Averageif function. Let's go ahead and answer this question. I'll go ahead and expand this column here, and I'll type an employee in here, and I'll go for Sean Tate. So I'll type Sean's name in here. So let's see if we can find out how many programs Sean Tate completed. So to do that, we'll use what's called the Countif function. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to count the amount of times that Sean Tate appears under the employee column. Right? So if we did this manually, we can see one here. And I only see one so far. Maybe there's more than one in there. It's okay, we can change it later. So as you can see, trying to do this manually is a little frustrating, especially if you have a large data set. So the Countif function will take care of that for us. I'll go ahead and insert the Countif function. So I'll click on the Formulas tab, and I'll click on the Insert function here, We could type the function in the cell like this, but if this is your first time using functions, it's best to use the function arguments box. So I'll go ahead and insert the Countif function here. I'll press go and I'll press OK. So it counts the number of cells within a range that meets the given condition. So the first part here is the range. So my range is going to be my employee column. So all of my data underneath the employee column should be C2 to C51, I believe. The next part of this is the criteria. So the criteria is the employee. I can type the name in here, but we know better than that. We want to use the cell reference. So this way now we can type a name in here and get an instant answer. So I'll go ahead and highlight that range. So C2 to C51. I just used the shortcut Control-Shift down to highlight all of those values. I did not feel like scrolling through here. So that's the first part. We have the range. Now the criteria is right there in G2. Here's a little preview of the range. So here's Brandy Turner, Roxanne Rollins, and then Bob Harvey. Right. We can see G2 has Sean Tate in there. So Sean has completed one program. I'll go ahead and press OK. And there is our first answer. Well, let's go ahead and change this. So for the employee, I'll go ahead and type Candace. Seems like Candace has completed a few programs here. So Candace Kimball. And there we go. So Candace has completed 2 courses. So now we can just enter an employee that exists on the list and we can get the amount of programs that were taken as well. So that is the Countif function. It's going to ask us basically for the range. It also asks for the criteria. As a matter of fact, all of these are going to ask us for the same thing. What is the range? What is the criteria? The difference is for the Sumif and the Averageif, it's going to ask us which column we will want to provide the calculation on as well. Let's go ahead and grab the total cost here for Candace Kimball. So I'll go ahead and add Candace here in the cell. So here's Candace. Now what I want to do is grab the total cost. We know that Candace completed 2 programs. What is the total cost for those 2 programs? Well, I could go ahead and kind of add this number here plus this number here as well. And I can pretty much do that. I can see the data right here. So it's a simple calculation. But what if, this was 5,000 rows of data and Candace completed 6 programs? I would need to do a lot of filtering to try and get that number. So I just want to simply enter the name in here and grab the total cost. Now, it's going to ask us the same thing. It's going to ask for the range and the criteria. It's also going to ask us for the math column. So which column do we want to perform the math on? So for this one, we'll use what's called the Sumif function. What's the range? What's the criteria? And what's the math column? Well, the range is going to be the employee column. That's the range. The criteria, well, it's going to be whatever is in this cell. We currently have Candace Kimball in there. And then finally, the last part here is the math column. We want to summarize the amount in the cost column, which is column D. So we have everything that we need. We're going to go ahead and plug in those ranges and we'll be good to go. So I'll go ahead and add my Sumif function here. And here we go. What's the range? My employee column. What am I looking for? I'm looking for Candace Kimball, which is currently in cell G5. And then the math column. I want to summarize the match that's found in column D. So I'll highlight all of column D. And there we go. So we found the two matches here for Candace Kimball on row 8. Here's the matching cost in column D. The other one here is on row 22, and there's the matching cost. Add these two numbers together, and it gives us our 418207. I'll go ahead and press OK, and I'm good to go. So that's how these functions work. Range, criteria. If you're summarizing or doing some type of math, we need to specify the math column as well. I'll go ahead and change this to Omar Matthews. Okay, so Omar Matthews, total cost for programs, $2,097 and 33. Now, so far, we've been highlighting the range. We've been working with the employee range, and we find ourselves, highlighting the range each time. But what we can actually do is we can actually name the range. So the next time we're entering our formula or our function, instead of highlighting, we can just type the name of the actual range. For example, I want to perform some math on the cost column here. I'm going to highlight all of those costs. So I can see I have D2 to D51 highlighted here. Well, right here in the name box, I want to go ahead and give that a name. So right here in the name box, I'll just type cost. So let's see what happens when I do that. I'll click in the name box. Instead of D2, I'll type cost in here, and I'll press the Enter key. Now, if I click on an empty cell, I'll click on the drop down here, and I can see that I have a named range in here called cost. If I click on there, it highlights the range for me. So now basically what I've done is that whenever I refer to cost, it's basically referring to this worksheet, right? So this is the functions worksheet, and the range D2 to D51. So why is that a big deal? Well, now what I can do, what if I want the total cost? Well, now I can enter the sum function. So I'm going to say equal the sum of, I don't have to highlight that range. I'll type the name in there. So COST. Here's the name range that Excel has saved into memory for me that I can refer to by name. So what is the sum of the cost range? I'll go ahead and press enter. And here's my answer. I'll just convert that to the accounting format so I can read it. So total training, $91,911.52. Right. Now what about the average? What is the average cost? So this time I'll use the average function. My range is the cost range. So same thing here. I'll give this the accounting format. So the average per program is $1838.23. So we can see how that can help us when we are using our ranges here. So I am going to go ahead and name the employee range, the department range, and the program range. I'll start with the programs. So I'll go ahead and highlight all of my program range, A2 to A51, and I'll just call this program. Now for department, I'll do the same thing. I'll highlight all of my departments, and I'll go ahead and call this department. Finally, for my employee, I'll highlight all of my employees as well. I'll go ahead and call this employees. And there we go. So now if I click on the drop down here, I can see here are my 4 named ranges: cost, department, employee, and program. So I'm good to go. And by the way, I can even use these ranges throughout my entire workbook. So if I go to another, let's say another worksheet tab here, and I want to summarize that cost column, I can do that from another sheet as well. So that's how we name ranges in Excel. Let's go ahead and grab the total cost for training programs with the accounting department. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at the average cost per program. So I'll go ahead and change this. Actually, it should be average cost. So let's use the Sumif function to summarize the total amount spent on training for the accounting department. So I'll go ahead and insert my function here again. Here's my Sumif. I'll press OK. Now we have the range. Range is the department. So we can type department in here. Our criteria is whatever is in this cell. And then the sum range is going to be our cost. So we have all the data that we need here. Let's use the names. So for the range, it's the department. And here's the preview of the department range over here. So the criteria is it has to be accounting. And the last part here is going to be the sum range. So what is the math column? I want to summarize the cost column. So I'll type COST. And there's our answer. So we did not even need to interact with our data set here. We did not need to see the data set. We did not need to click on it. We can just refer to it by name. Here's our answer, $20,634.23. I'll go ahead and press OK. And there we go. Now I can change that and get an answer there as well. I'll change this to HR. So HR spent $16,462.61 on training programs for their staff. I'll do one more. This time we'll use the Averageif function to find out what is the average cost per program. For the program, I'll choose leadership. And we'll use the Averageif function for this one. We'll refer to the ranges. So the range is going to be the program range. The criteria is going to be whatever is in this cell, which is currently leadership. And we want to perform the math on the cost column. So I'll go ahead and insert my Averageif. It's already on my list down here on the bottom, so I'll click OK. So I'm good to go. The range is program. We can see it appears here. If we typed it in correctly, it will not show up here. My criteria is it needs to be leadership. We want to perform the math on the cost column. And there we go. We have our answer. So we just put the range in. We're getting our answer. So the average is $1,960.48. I'll go ahead and press OK. And now we're good to go. So we have a fully functional little dashboard here that we can use to just enter some inputs in column G and get the corresponding output in column H as well. So feel free to change these values to get some real-time results here as well. Let's head on over to XLOOKUP here. Now XLOOKUP is a really nice lookup function. So in this case, what I would like to do is set up a little kiosk. I want to be able to enter an employee number. And based on the employee number, I want to return the name of the employee, the hire date, their length of service, and maybe their pay rates as well. So this will give me a little, again, just like we did before, a little dashboard that we can use to return values from another data set. So now that we have some more detail here for our very first worksheet, the text functions. So here's the employee number, we have the name, we have the hire date, and we have the length of service as well. So the way the XLOOKUP works is we need to go ahead and input the employee number. So for example, let's say I input employee number 788. What XLOOKUP will do is going to search this column. Once it finds the record with employee number 788, well, then what I can do is go ahead and return any field. So I can return the name field, I can return the corresponding hire date, length of service, and the pay rate as well. So that's pretty much how XLOOKUP works. So let's get some practice. I'll go ahead and create the first one here. So we can either have the kiosk here on the same worksheet as the data set, or it can be on another worksheet. So I'll go ahead and put an employee number in here. I'll go with the 788. So this is going to be my input. So the input is the employee number, and the output, we want to output the name, hire date, length of service, and the pay rate as well. Let's write our first XLOOKUP statement. Let's take a look at the function. Let's see what it asks for. And then we'll keep it simple, and then we'll see how we can be more efficient with returning the hire date, length of service, and the pay rate. So I'll go ahead and insert my XLOOKUP function here. I already have it here, so I'll go ahead and press OK. So it asks for three things. What is the lookup value? Well, lookup value is going to be the employee number, 788 in this case. So this should be whatever is in cell A2, which currently has 788 in there. The next part here for the lookup array, this is basically asking us where can we find right? So where can we find the employee numbers? That's pretty much what it's asking us. The last part here, the return array, well, this is basically asking us to choose a field to return. And that's it. So we already have all the information. We just need to highlight the cells and ranges, and XLOOKUP will take care of the rest for us. So let's do this. I'll go ahead and click on cell A2, which has 788 in there. Now remember, the lookup array is where can I find those employee numbers? So which column has that 788? Well, I can click on the sheet here, and I'll go ahead and highlight all of my employee numbers. So here's the array, 731, 781, 771. Now that I'm here, I'll move this over. Well, what do I want to return? Well, I want to return the name. So I'll highlight all of my names here. Okay. So based on the ID 788, we can see that the matching name for that record is Marcus Abbott. So basically what we did, we took that employee number, we went down this column here, and we returned the actual name from here as well. So that is how XLOOKUP works. Now to make things more efficient, we can name these ranges, the employee number range, the name range, the hire date range, and the length of service. So this way we can just type the name of the range in here as opposed to having to navigate back over here as well. So I'll go ahead and name those ranges, and then we'll write our other XLOOKUP functions. So I'll go ahead and highlight all of my employee numbers. I'll just call this emp_num. And for all of my names, I'll just call that name. Here are my hire dates. Just call it hire date, one word. And length of service, I'll just call that LOS. And I'm good to go. So go ahead and name those ranges, and we'll come back and we'll write our other XLOOKUP functions by using the name of the range. I'll go ahead and return the hire date from Mark Abbott with employee number 788. So I'll go ahead and insert my XLOOKUP function here. Now remember, the lookup value is always going to be cell A2. We need to enter a value in here to search the database. Now the lookup array, this is going to be the employee num. Now if we forgot the name that we used, if we take a look here on the formulas tab in the define names command group, we can click on this drop down and this will show us all the names, all the named ranges that we have, and we can choose a name from the drop down. So I'll click on the drop down here, and it was the employee number. So I'll choose this range. We can see it's locking on to that range that is on the text functions worksheet tab. Now, as far as the return array, I want to return the name, and I call that name. All right, but that's not what I want. I want the hire date. So I'll click on the drop down here. Here is hire date. So here's the serial value for the hire date. I'll go ahead and press OK. And I just need to convert this to a date format. So I'll right click on it. I'll click on Format Cells, and I'll choose I'll go with the short date format here. So there we go. So two XLOOKUP statements returning the name and the hire date. Just going to go ahead and give this a little bit of style. So I'll use some of these cell styles here. And I'll give these the output cell style. There we go. It looks a little better. We'll go ahead and clean things up a little bit. We'll zoom in. Okay, so let's put another number in here and give it a quick test. Let's go for 751. Let's see if we get Ralph Dunbar, 632.16. So let's put 751 in there. And there we go, Ralph Dunbar, 630.16. I'll go ahead and write two more here, one for the length of service. So formulas, XLOOKUP. Lookup value again is always going to be A2. Lookup array. I want the employee numbers. The return array, I want the length of service. So what did I call that here? LOS. And I'm good to go. Now there's two other options down here. You'll notice that they're not bold like the rest here. This just allows us to enter an input message if an ID is entered that does not belong. We'll take a look at that next here. I'll go ahead and press OK. Here's the length of service. Now I can just go ahead and remove the decimals to get a whole number. And we're good to go. Let's do one more. Before I do that, I'll go ahead and enter a number that's not on the database. I'll put 999. So as you can see, we're getting an NA error because that number does not exist, right? A value is not available for this function. So that message does not make sense. So what we can do is we can customize the message that appears if the value that's entered is not found. We'll do that for the last one here. I'll insert my formula for the pay rate. So again, sometimes you just need to pause. Okay, the lookup value is A2. The lookup array, my employee numbers. The return array, I want to return the pay rate. So let's see. Did I put the pay rate in here? Nope, don't have the pay rate. That's okay. We can cancel this. I'll go ahead and add the pay rate here. So I'll name that as pay rate. Good to go. I'll come back now and, okay, so lookup value. Lookup array is the employee number. We want to return the match from the pay rate column. And now I'll put my if not found in here. So if someone enters a value that's not on there, I'll just say no such ID or no such number. I'll go with no such ID. The other option here is the match mode. Now we don't have to worry about this because by default it searches for an exact match. So we're good to go. I'll go ahead and press OK. Here's my pay rate. Just need to go ahead and convert that to the accounting or currency format. So there's the record for Ralph Dunbar. Now if I put it in a number that does not exist, 999, we can see that because we have the no if not found clause in here, it's giving us a custom statement, which is no such ID, as opposed to the NA that appears here as well. So we're good to go. I'll go ahead and just give this a quick test. Let's enter one more ID. Let's go for 777 there. 777, I'll press enter. There's Kelly Roy, 3981. Let's just confirm. Here's Kelly Roy, 3981. So that is XLOOKUP. Combining it with name ranges makes the process more efficient. Let's make use of the consolidation tool. The consolidation tool can be found on the Data tab. In the Data tab, we have the Data Tools command group. We have a really small icon here, and that is the consolidation. If I move my mouse over it, it tells me exactly what it does. So it summarizes data from separate ranges. In this case, we have separate sheets. So for example, if you have a worksheet of expense figures for each of your regional offices, you might use a consolidation to roll up the figures into an expense worksheet. Well, that's what we want to do. We want to consolidate 3 worksheets into a single report with the consolidation tool. Here's our goal. We want to go ahead and merge the details from California, Washington, and Oregon into this sheet. So it's going to summarize all of our pro-dev training expenses for all 4 quarters for all 3 of our regions as well. So if I were to click on California, we can see California has its own set of numbers here. For example, in quarter 4, we spent $13,931.67 on software application training. In quarter 3, for communication, we spent $96.93.96. If I go to Washington, same headers, program, quarter 1, quarter 2, 3, and 4. Same labels as well, but each individual numbers. And then Oregon has their own number as well. So if I wanted to add all these numbers up at the end of the year, I would need to do something like this. So I would need to say equal quarter 1 for software applications for California plus quarter 1 for Washington plus quarter 1 for Oregon. And it gives me the answer. It's $39,278. But I have to click on those cells manually on each sheet to get that detail here. And now I'm going to have to do that quite a few more times to gather the rest of the details here as well. Well, thankfully we have the consolidation tool. So let's see how this works. I'm going to highlight the range. Now the key is we need to highlight the same range on each sheet. So this works best with some type of template, right, or a standard template that we can use. So I'll go ahead and highlight all of my headers. So A3 down to E8. Going to run the consolidation tool. Here is my dialog box. So in this case, I do want to summarize the data. So I'll leave that as the sum function here. Now I need to go ahead and add my references. So this up arrow here reminds us that we can select a range from a different sheet. So I'll click here and I'll click on California, and I'm going to highlight the same range, A3 to E8. I'll go ahead and add that to the report. Now I'll move on over to Washington. Now when I moved over to Washington, notice how it's automatically highlighting the range for me. The nature of the tool, it assumes you want to summarize the same location on each sheet. I'll go ahead and add Washington. And then I'll click on Oregon just to make sure everything is selected. If it's not selected, you can just manually select it. I'll go ahead and click on Add. Now I do want to use the labels in the top row in the left column, so I'll go ahead and click here, and I'm good to go. If you want this to be dynamic, so if the numbers change, if you want the numbers to be updated automatically here, you can use the Create Links to Data Source option. It's just a little problematic because it creates some groupings and it kind of duplicates your numbers if you have any formulas in here. Like I am on row 10, I'm summarizing it. I'll leave that turned off. Let's go ahead and press OK, and let's see what happens. So there we go. Remember our first calculation, we did it manually. We get the same number here. So Q1 for all of our software applications across our 3 regions, the total is $39,278.82. So we're good to go. Now I have the totals down here, just a simple formula summing up that column, and we're good to go. So that is how the consolidation tool works. Now the tool is also intuitive. So for example, I don't necessarily have to have these same labels here. I do need to have the same headers on all of my reports. But let's say on California, I did not have communication, but I had another type of program here. It would work properly. So it would include all of those unique labels here as well. So that is the consolidation tool. Now that we have our consolidated report, we can create a chart from here. Now here's my charts worksheet tab. Now, if I want to, I could insert my chart onto this worksheet, or I can add my chart here as well. Well, let's go ahead and add the chart for our consolidation worksheet. And once we add it, customize it, we can move it over to the charts worksheet tab here as well. So several different ways to insert a chart. This is some really important information, and so I like to create a nice visual from this data set. Now, if I click on the Insert tab, we have what's called recommended charts. So over in the charts command group, I can be very specific. Maybe I want a pie chart or a column chart or a bar chart, but I want to use what's called a recommended chart. So Excel is going to analyze my data for me and give me the chart that it thinks will fit best with my data here. As a matter of fact, if you just move your mouse over it, that's exactly what it does. So I want a recommended chart. I'll click here. And it's giving me the clustered bar chart. And as you can see, regardless of the chart that you choose, it is incorporating your data into that particular chart. I like this one. Here's the clustered column chart. So here are just some of the recommended ones that we can use. You can also use any chart. So if you click on all charts, here are different types of charts. So here's the 3D clustered column chart. Here's a line chart. Right. So lots of different charts that we can use. Just keep in mind, some of these charts, they only display one series at a time. And so We just want to make sure that we're using one that's capturing the data that we want here as well. I'll go for the clustered column chart. It's a great chart because it allows you to display multiple series on a single chart, right? So in this particular one, the first cluster is the name of the program. And then we have the individual bars here indicating the quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 total costs for there as well. I'll go ahead and click OK. We can always change the chart later. And here is my chart. So we can see this chart. We can already understand the data. We have our legend down here. We have our vertical axis with the actual numbers. And on the horizontal axis, we have the names of the actual programs. We also have our chart title here, and we're good to go. Now we can customize the chart if we want to. As a matter of fact, once you select the chart, if you take a look at the chart design tab, there's a lot of things that we can do here. We can choose a chart style. We can already see that some of these will improve the look and feel of the chart. We can move the chart to another sheet. We can change the chart type. We can edit the data. We can switch the row and the column if we want to. And then there's a lot of other things that we can do. We can change the colors that are being displayed on the chart. We can add or remove some of the chart elements. And we have some preset layouts here that we can use. So a lot that we can do with our chart here, but I'll keep it simple. I'll make use of some of the quick layouts that are available. So I can click on my paintbrush right here. And this kind of gives me just some quick layouts here that I can use. So here's style number 1, here's style number 2. So you can see style number 2, it adds the data labels, but they're in a vertical orientation, so they're not overlapping each other. Here's style number 3. So it just kind of moved the legend to the top. We have a different gradient fill there. If I scroll down, and we can preview them before we actually choose it. Here's style number 5. Here's style number 6. That looks pretty nice and vibrant. Here's style number 7. Just a gray background. Here's style number 8. So very modern, dark theme. So lots of different styles here that we can use. So you're going to go ahead and choose the style that you want. I'm going to choose style number 8. So I'll go for the dark theme here. And then I can go ahead and give this a chart title. So I'll just go ahead and call this quarterly training cost. All right, so quarterly training cost. Now, even in here, I can actually modify the font, the color, and size, and so forth if I want to. Right. So that is how we insert a recommended chart. I'll go ahead and click on switch row and column, and let's see what it gives me. But first, here's how we read this chart. So the first cluster, the software applications. If I move my mouse over that first bar, here's the quarter 1 values for software applications, quarter 2 value, quarter 3, and then quarter 4. So everything is interactive. Just move your mouse over and you'll get a nice little tooltip here as well. I'll just go ahead and switch the row and column data and let's see what happens. Let's see if it makes sense. So in this case, we flip the data. And so now the first cluster is quarter 1. In quarter 1, here are our numbers for software applications, leadership, computer skills program, public speaking, and communications as well. So go ahead and insert your chart. Go ahead and take a look at some of the quick layouts that are available. You can even change the color here that's being provided on your chart. And we'll come right back. Now let's go ahead and manage the chart. So we can move the chart around. We can resize it to make it bigger. We can even change the chart type. So if I click back on the chart design tab here, I can change the chart type to something else. So if I want more of a 3D feel, I can go ahead and do that. I can also go ahead and change it to another type of chart, so maybe a tree map. The tree map, just the bigger the box, the higher the value. So quarter 2, 43.9. Right. So that's what we can do. So we can change it to another chart type, and it will still incorporate the data for us, and we'll be good to go. I'll go back to the regular clustered column here. Now, I'll go ahead and switch the row and column data again here. I'd rather see this view. And now, what if I add another application here? So what if I add another program? I could do that if I want to. It's not going to automatically be displayed on the chart. So if I just put other in here, and for quarter 1, we can see it's not being displayed on the chart. So if I want that information to be displayed on the chart, I have a couple of options. Notice when you click on the chart, it kind of highlights some of the different parts of the chart here. Right? So we have the series, the legend, and the actual numerical values as well. I can see it's not including that new record. So what I can do is move my mouse right over here, and I can drag to kind of display what I want to on the chart. So if I want to add that, include that new entry, we can see that it's been included here. What if I just want to focus on the first half? So quarter 1 and quarter 2, here are the numbers for quarter 2 as well. So we can always feel free just to kind of move this around to kind of reshape the data that's being displayed on the actual chart. I'll simplify it. I'll just show quarter 1 and quarter 2 for all those values there as well. Now, what else can I do with this chart? Well, I can move this chart to its own worksheet. So I'll click on chart design, and I'll click on the move chart command here. Now I have two options. I can either move it to an existing sheet, or I can move it to a new sheet. Well, I want to move it to the charts sheet here, which is right over here. And that way I can just have the chart on that sheet by itself. I can make it as big as I want to, and I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and press OK. We can see it moved our chart to the charts worksheet. I'll go ahead and just resize it here. Now this is still tied to our data set. Right. I'll make this a little bigger. So it is still tied to our data set. So if I were to change any of the values on here, for example, for other, for quarter 4, I'll change this to 80,000. Let's go back to our chart. That was quarter 4. Let me go ahead and change quarter 1 instead. So as we can see, it significantly increases here. So we're still dynamically connected to that range of data on that particular sheet. And there we go. So that is our chart. Now there's another type of chart that we can use, and that is called a sparkline. I'm going to put my sparkline right over here on the consolidation sheet, because what I would like to do is get a little trend. So what is the trend in terms of cost for each software program across quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4? So if I were to try and draw a line that represents the trend here, we can see that we went up. For software applications, we had an increase in quarter 2, decrease in quarter 3, and a slight increase again in quarter 4. So just a little trend line here, but that's not accurate. That's just my freehand. So I want the sparkline to actually create that trend analysis for me. So we'll take a look at that in just a few. let's insert our Sparkline to get a nice trend analysis to see how we're trending from Q1 to Q4 for our software applications program. If I click on the Insert tab, to the far right here, I have an entire command group just for Sparklines. I can insert a line, Sparkline, visual, a column, or win-loss. Win-loss only has to do with positive or negative values, so they don't apply here. We'll start with a line visual, and we can convert it to a column visual later on. So Sparkline is just a mini chart that will appear right inside of a cell. So I'll go ahead and click on the line Sparkline here. And I like any dialog box that only asks me for two things. It's asking me for the location. So where do I want to place the actual Sparkline? I already have G4 selected. If I did not, I could have just clicked on it here. Now for my data range, I want to analyze the numbers Q1 to Q4 for software applications. So I'll go ahead and highlight those numbers. And it's going to go ahead and give me the appropriate visual, unlike my freehand visual there. So the data range is B4 to E4. So Q1, 2, 3, and 4. Program costs for software applications. I want to place my Sparkline right here in cell G4. I'll go ahead and press OK. And there's a more accurate description. So a sharp decline and a sharp incline here as well. Now I like to make the column wider so I can really see that visual. I can also make the row higher. So there we go. Now we get a Sparkline contextual tab as well. So once we have that selected, here's our Sparkline contextual tab. So we can do things like annotate the low point, high point. We can change the style as well. And we can even convert it to a column. I'll go ahead and highlight the high point and the low point. So here's the high in Q2, the low is in Q3. And I'll go ahead and change the style here as well. Now, depending if you change the cell color, then these styles will kind of look a little better. But here's my orange. So there's my trend as well. Now, what I can do, I don't have to create individual Sparklines for each of my programs here. What I can do is I can grab the fill handle and I can pull this down, and this will create the individual Sparklines for me as well. So I'll go ahead and do that. And there we go. I'll just go ahead and make sure that all of the rows are high enough. So I'll change the row height to 28. And there we go. So we can see leadership, kind of sharp increase here. Looks like there was more interest in this particular program. So just based on the expenditures here, right? We can see in Q4, generally there was less interest in our programs. We get that dip here for Q4. So that is a Sparkline. That is how we are able to just display a trend analysis. As opposed to a chart, we just have a simple visual right in a cell here as well. I'll go ahead and change this to a column visual. So I'll click on the Sparkline here and I'll change this to a column visual. Let's see what that looks like. So here's just a little column chart inside of each of our cells. Change the color. So there we go. So those are our Sparklines. That wraps up Module 1, text functions, formulas, functions, charts, and the consolidation tool. Let's go ahead and jump into our Module 2. So for Module 2, we'll take a look at table tools. We'll take a look at conditionally formatting our data. We'll take a look at the subtotal option. We'll implement data validation, and we'll spend some time taking a look at pivot table tools. So please go ahead and open up the Module 2 exercise file and come right back. When you're working in Excel, you're more likely working from a list or a table. Here is a basic list, and what I want to do is convert this list into a table. Once I convert this list into a table, I'll have some more capabilities to sort and filter efficiently. I can utilize slicers, and we'll also take a look at the total row. Now, I'll go ahead and click on the Home tab, and over in the Home tab, in the Styles command group, I'm going to go ahead and click on Format as a Table. Once we format this as a table, we'll utilize some of these tools. I'll go ahead and choose a table style. I'll go for this light style here. A little dialog box appears asking me just to confirm the range for my data here. I'll go ahead and press OK. Here is my table. I can see that I have headers here for drop downs rather, or filters for all of my headers. This allows me to do things like I can sort that column A to Z or Z to A. I can even sort by color if I want to, once I start using conditional formatting. I can search for a specific value or part of a value. I can select a distinct value down here as well. And I even have some other logical filters that I can utilize. Well, for now, I just want to go ahead and make sure that my table here is sorted by the employee number column. So I'll go ahead and click on this drop down, and I can either sort from smallest to largest or largest to smallest. And there you go. So now we're sorted by employee ID. If I wanted to, I can go ahead and sort the name as well. So I can go ahead and click on Sort A to Z. Now I'm sorted by first name in this case, because we only have the first name in here. So that is sorting. But let's take a look at some filters. Maybe I want to go ahead and use filters. Sorting is a great way to kind of just organize your data, but filters builds upon the sorting capability to give us more opportunities to focus on the data set that we want to. So maybe I want to just focus on a particular state. I'll click on the drop down here. Let's say I just want to focus on California. I can either type CA in the search bar. We can see it's only going to return all those records where the state is California. Or I can just go ahead and choose California from here. Either method works well. I'll go ahead and press OK. And we can see it's filtered our data. When we run our filter, it tells us right away how many records were found. So right now it's telling us that 10 of 51 records were found where the state is California. So that's a pretty nice filter. I'll go ahead and clear that filter. So I'll click on the filter icon here, and I want to clear the filter from the state. This will put my table back to normal here. And let's take a look at another type of filter. What about the filter for the hire date? So I'll go ahead and click on hire date here. And maybe I want to learn how many hires did we have, let's say in 2023. I could just select 2023 here, but I'll use a date filter. And I want to search for a value between two dates. So I'll say between January 1st, 2023 and December 31st, 2023. I could also click on the date picker here if I wanted to. I'll go ahead and press OK. And here are my 4 hires from that particular year. So pretty good. We can see how the filters just moves all of the other data out of the way for us temporarily so that we can focus on the data that we are looking for. I'll go ahead and clear the filter here from the hire date. But in fact, I can go ahead and run multiple filters if I want to. So based on the hire date has to be 2023, and maybe the state is going to be Louisiana. And there we go. So we can run multiple filters on our data set right now by hire date and by state as well. I'll go ahead and clear these 2 filters, put my data back to normal, And there we go. So practice filtering the different columns on your data set and come right back. Another nice way to filter our data is by using slicers. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click on my table here. You'll notice when I click on my table, I have what's called a Table Design tab. And this Table Design tab is where we can find some tools to analyze our data like slicers and the total row. So we'll take a look at the slicer tool here. I'll go ahead and click on my Table Design. And over on the far left, here is my Insert Slicer command. I'll go ahead and insert, click on that button here. And here are the different slicers that I have. So I have one slicer for each of my headers. And so I can create some buttons that will allow me to filter by these different headers. I'll go ahead and insert a slicer for the state. This is a good option because we only have a few selections in here. If I were to go ahead and insert a slicer, let's say for the name, I'll go ahead and press OK. And we can see that we have our slicer for our state. States are in here. And even though it's quite a bit, I can still kind of see them on one screen here. And I can go ahead and just click on a button. Now, if I click on the Arizona button on my state slicer here, notice how it filters my table for me. So it's only showing the state of Arizona. If I click on California, here are my 10 records from the state of California. So it's a pretty nice tool. It offers a one-click solution instead of clicking several places to filter what you're looking for. Now I can combine slicers with other slicers if I want to. Now you can see the name slicer is not really a good candidate because there's so many individual or unique or distinct values. But let's see if I can make this work for me here. I'll go ahead and clear my filter from the state slicer. And let's see if I can maybe have 3 columns for the names here. Let's see if I can get this to fit on one screen. Once I click on my slicer, I'll head on up to my slicer tab here. And I'll go ahead and change the columns from 1 to 2. And let's see what that looks like. So it's a little better. Still have to kind of scroll down here a little bit. Maybe I'll make it 3 columns. So it's still a little bit to handle. I mean, I could make this as big as I need it to be, but if I add another column in here, it's going to become very difficult. But this works. If I just want to go ahead and click on a particular employee, there you go. It just shows the actual record. Here's Hazel Rich. Here's Janice Thornton. Here's Edwin Johnson. Notice how the other slicer automatically updates because Edwin Johnson is from New Mexico. I'll go ahead and clear the filter here, and I'll get rid of this slicer. Just press the delete key. And now this slicer works a lot better. I'll go ahead and make this one 2 columns. Now I can make it a little smaller. I can put it right here. I'll change the color. I'm good to go. If I click on New Mexico, we have 1 Texas. There are 6 records. So those are the slicers. We'll visit these more when we are constructing our pivot tables. One of my favorite table tools is the table row. Now the table row can be found on the Design tab, and right in the table style options, we'll see the total row. We can see it's not turned on by default. I want to go ahead and turn that on because the next logical thing for us to do with our data set is to start summarizing our columns. We have a couple of numerical columns in here that we can perform some math on, whether it's summarizing, grabbing the average, so forth and so on. So I'll go ahead and turn on the total row, and it adds a row to the end of my data set here. And we can see it's already summarizing the time off balance for us. We have 535. If I click on the drop down here, so each cell on the total row has a drop down where we can insert the sum function, the average function, the count, the max, the min, and if necessary, more functions as well. We'll focus on the basic functions here, the max, the min, the average, and the sum. So if I wanted to calculate the entire gross pay, I can click here and I'll click on the sum function here. And it summarizes that column for me. The total gross pay, $46,744.50. What were the average hours worked? 30. And what is the average pay rate? $30.51. So we're getting some really, really nice data in here. So that's how the total row works. Now, if I filter the data, these numbers will reflect what we are filtering for. So if I click on my, let's see if I still have my slicer here. I do. I'll go ahead and click on Oregon. So here are my 5 employees from the state of Oregon, and we can see these numbers have been updated. The time off balance here is 82. Here's our gross pay, average hours worked, and the average pay rate. So pretty cool. So that is the total row. We can use them to summarize the entire table or based on what we are filtering by. I'll go ahead and put that back, and we can see our numbers are displaying here as well. Well, what is the max hours worked? So the highest amount of hours worked by any employee is 40. Let's change that to the min, and we have 20. Most likely several examples of 20 here. So that is the total row. No need to write formulas. We have the formulas built into that last row of our table for us. Let's apply some conditional formatting to this table. Now, I do have some colors in here already. Conditional formatting is all about color coding different cells to give us a visual. So for example, if I highlight my entire time off balance column and I want to see some data bars here, let me turn off my total row first. And so if I click on conditional formatting, I can have some data bars, and this will kind of give me a quick visual to show me which values are standing out from the others. I can clearly see on row 20 that Ethel Nash has a high time off balance of 18, whereas on row 19, Ernie Chandler has 6. So those are the data bars that we can use. So these are gradient fills. On the bottom, I have more solid colors, but it's the same concept here. So conditional formatting is another way to filter your data without moving the data or hiding the data. We also have what's called color scales. So there are different types of color scales that I can use. Here's the green, yellow, red color scale. So the green represents the higher values, whereas the red represents the lower values. So I'll go ahead and apply the green, yellow, red color scale. So there we go. So now we can quickly scroll through and we can quickly highlight those green values, which represent the higher values, and also those red values, which represents the lower values. Let's see if I can filter by color. I'll go ahead and click on the filter icon here, and I want to sort by color. Well, I can sort by color. Let's see if I can sort by that color here. Not really doing a good job. Let's see if I can filter by color. I'll filter for all of the green. And there you go. So now we can focus on all of our higher time off balances. I'll go ahead and use another filter here. What about I'll go for more of this color here. So we can filter by color after applying conditional formatting to our data set. I'll go ahead and clear that. So I'll click on the filter here. I'll clear the filter. I'll leave that conditional formatting turned on. Another way that I can conditionally format, I'll go ahead and highlight all of my gross pays. Now this time I want a condition. So I'll click on conditional formatting, and I have highlight cell rules. So I can highlight all the gross pays that are greater than a certain value, less than or between, or a specific value. I can take a look at the top 10% or the top 10 items. I'll go ahead and I'll click on top 10 items. Let's see what happens here. Actually, I'll go for top 10%. And so conditional formatting is you select the range, you apply your built-in conditional formatting, and then you just choose your cell formatting. For this one, I want this to be a green fill with dark text. I'll go ahead and press OK. And there you go. So it pretty much highlights those top 10% of the gross pays. So Brandy Turner, Cecilia Carr, Jacqueline Cordova, and so forth and so on. So that is pretty cool. Well, let's try another one here. What about the hours? I'll go ahead and highlight all of the hours. Let's take a look at another conditional formatting. This time I'll take a look at a highlight cell. I'll look for, let's say, less than. So less than 30. So if it's less than 30, give me a green fill with dark text. And we can see right here in real time, it's highlighting all of those hours where it's less than 30. So I can change this number if I want to, maybe 25. And I'll go ahead and press OK. So the conditional formatting is a really nice way to basically filter your data in the form of a visual. Let's take a look at the Subtotal tool. Now, with this particular report, I want to generate a report that's based on the length of service, the hours by state. So based on the state, I want a summary by state. We're going to go ahead and add up the length of service and the hours as well. So I can do that manually, but there is a tool that will pretty much provide this report for me. So the first thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and make sure that I sort the column of interest. So my column of interest here is the state. So I'll go ahead and make sure that I sort the state column. So that's the first thing that I need to do. So I'll click on the state column here, and I'll click on the data tab, and I'll go ahead and sort A to Z. So we can see it's now sorted A to Z. This goes down to row 52. So now what I can do, now that that's sorted, I'm still on the data tab here. I want to use this subtotal command in the outline command group. Let's hover over it and see what it says. It says quickly calculate rows of related data by inserting subtotals and totals. Well, that's exactly what I want. So at the end of California, for example, it's going to insert a row that's summarizing the data for the length of service and the hours for me. Once it gets to the end of Iowa here, it's going to do the same thing. So you can see that's quite a bit of a task. I'm going to go ahead and run the subtotal here. Now the subtotal only works with lists, so it does not work with the table. So I have not converted this list into a table. I'll go ahead and click on the subtotal. We can see it automatically selects all the data here. So now I just need to go ahead and add the information. I'll actually do this backwards. So I want length of service and hours by state. So I'll make sure to check off length of service and hours. And for the state, it's that first box. It says at each change in. This is another way for just saying our column of interest. So at each change in the state column, go ahead and give me the subtotals for the length of service and the hours as well. I'll go ahead and press OK, and let's see what happens. So we can see that it's giving us a lot of detail here. We can see here's a subtotal line for Arizona. We only had one in Arizona. So here's the total length of service and the hours as well. For California, we had several. So the total length of service is 52, and we have 309 hours in here as well. Now, if you take a look at the top left, right underneath the name box here, we have 3 buttons to click on. I want to click on number 1, and number 1 just gives us a page 1 of the report, the grand total for the length of service, and the hours worked. If I click on page 2, it gives me another condensed breakdown for each state, length of service, and the hours as well. And then if I still want to look at the overall data, I can click on button number 3, and at each change in the state, it's inserting a subtotal row for us. So that is the subtotal command. Data validation is a really efficient way to limit the type of data that can be placed in cells. So we have our employee turnover metrics datasheet here, and we're recording the top reasons for turnover. But we want to limit the list to better opportunities, family relocation, career change, or personal growth. So as you can see, we have some other options in here that kind of overlap each other. Right? So do job offers is kind of similar to better opportunities or career growth. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these values in here. And what I'll make sure is that you can only select from one of these options in here. So you can only select one of these 4 options at a high level. So to do that, I'm going to highlight all of those cells. And what I would like to do is have some in-cell drop-downs here. You can click on the drop-down and you'll be prompted to select one of these 4 options. So, and then if you try to enter any other value in there, that will not work. So step 1, I'll go ahead and highlight those cells. I can always expand this later if I want to, but for now, just for demonstration purposes, I'll use these. I'll click on the Data tab, and in the Data tab, we have the Data Validation. There's a little check mark, a little checklist here. If I hover over it, it tells me that I can pick from a list of rules to limit the type of data that can be entered into a cell. I'll click on it here, and right now, it's allowing any value. Well, I want to allow from a list. So I will click on list here. Notice you can also prevent what can be entered. If this is going to be a date, you can limit the start date and the end date. So only dates between 2 dates or different operators in here. We also have time. So between a start time and an end time here. For this one, I just want to pick from a list. Now the source, I can either type the list in here manually, or I can use this opportunity to refer to this range of cells right here. So I'll just click here and I'll highlight those cells and I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and press OK. If I wanted to, I can change the input message, change the error alert if I want to, but I'll leave everything as default. I'll press OK. And there we go. Now if I come here, I can see I have a small drop down here and it forces me to choose from one of these 4 options. So maybe we have this. We don't have all the information in here, but we'll just go ahead and populate this. Let's see if I try to add something in here. Maybe they're upset. It tells me you cannot do that. You have to enter one of the items from the list here. So I'll click on retry. And I can type it as long as I type it correctly, as long as it matches my list. And then I'm good to go. Maybe the rest of these are personal growth. Go ahead and do that. So there we go. So that is data validation. Just different ways that we can restrict the type of data that can be entered into a cell. Let's start talking about pivot tables. Now, as you can see, I don't have any pivot data in here. What we're going to do is import data from another source. So if I click on the Data tab, over in the left, I have the Get and Transform command group here. Now what I can do is I can grab data from many different sources. From a picture, I can grab data from a text file or a CSV file. CSV files are very common in the data world. Typically when data is being exported from one system into the next. I can even grab a data set from the web as long as I have a valid URL. I can also go ahead and grab data from a table or a range in this workbook. And if I click on Get Data, here's a combination. So I can grab from a PDF file, from a folder, from a SharePoint folder. So there's several different ways for me to be able to add data from here. In this example, we're going to be grabbing data from a CSV file. So I'll click on From Text /CSV. And here's the CSV file that I want to use. Looks like Excel, but that's a CSV file. I'll go ahead and click on Import here. And because there's a CSV file, I am prompted with this information here. I can kind of take a look at my data. I can see all of my headers are being displayed properly. So this was actually exported pretty well. So I'm good to go. I'll leave everything here as is. If things did not look the way they were supposed to, I can change the delimiter in here until I get the look and feel that I want. I'll go ahead and load the data. I could transform the data if I wanted to. For example, if I wanted to remove some of these columns, maybe I don't want to include some of these. This is Power Query. So these are kind of beyond this course here. I'll just go ahead and load the data and let's see what this file looks like here. And there we go. So we can see that the data has been loaded in here. Now 100 rows of data were loaded. And if I hover over this, I can just kind of see a brief overview of the data set that I'm working with and the columns as well. I'll go ahead and close this side pane. So that's how we can import data from another either data set or another data source. Now that we've imported data from a CSV file, we can see that it automatically converts this into a table for us. I'll go ahead and click on the table design here. And one of the tools that's available is to summarize our table with a pivot table. So by clicking on the table design tab, all the way to the left, I have summarize with a pivot table. I can also click on the insert tab. From here, I can go ahead and insert a pivot table. I also have what's called recommended pivot tables. Let's go ahead and choose a recommended pivot table. This way we can see the pivot table and we can dive right in. I'll go ahead and click here. And this little dialog box pops up here. And we can see this is giving us the sum of age by the department. That may not be useful. Here's the sum of experience by department, or by position rather. So we have a lot of experience for the sales representative role. And performance score based on the academic credentials. So we can kind of see if there's a correlation between the score and the academic credentials as well. I'll scroll down. So quite a few in here. I'll go ahead and just choose one to find the data that I'm looking for. I'll keep it simple. I'll go ahead and select the first one here, sum of age by department. And I'll go ahead and press OK. And so that inserts the pivot table for me. Now the first thing that we can take a look at, this does not really make too much sense. We have the sum of age and we have our different departments in here. But what we can do, instead of summarizing the age, let's see if we can get the average in here. So what I'm going to do right here in the values area box, I'll click on the drop down here and I will click on value field settings. Now notice it's summarizing the data, but what if I want to maybe grab the average or the count? Let's see what else I can do in here. Right. So maybe I just want the average. So I'll click on average here, and then I'll go ahead and press OK, and let's see what I get. So I'll go ahead and press OK. And that makes more sense. So the average age for our employees in the finance department is 38, where sales is a little older. So the average age is around 46. Now I have a lot of decimals in here, so I'll go ahead and fix those as well. I can do that by going back to the value field settings. I can click here. I can also get to the value field settings just by right clicking on a number. And here is the value field settings here as well. So I'll go ahead and right click. I'll click on value field settings. We were here before. Well, I want to change the number format. So I'll go ahead and click on number format here. This is a number. I just want maybe 1 decimal space. I'll go ahead and press OK. Press OK again. And there we go. So now we have created a small report, made a minor change, and now we can go ahead and get some details in terms of which department tends to be younger and which one has more experience as well. For this example, I'll go ahead and insert a pivot table from scratch here. So I'll click on my table, I'll click on the Insert tab, and I'll click on Pivot Table. Now I do want to place the pivot table on a new worksheet, so I'll just go ahead and press OK. It's already selected the data in my HR data table, so I'll go ahead and press OK. And so we have a blank canvas to work with, and over here on the right we have our pivot table fields. So basically I can just go ahead and have Excel build a pivot table for me. So for example, if I wanted some reports on the salary, I can click on salary. Notice how it places the salary in the values box, and it's summarizing the salary for me. Well, I do want to change this to the accounting format. So I'll right click here, go back to value field settings again. And down here for the number format, I'll click here and I'll change that to the accounting format. I'll keep the decimals places there. I'll go ahead and press OK. Also go ahead and press OK again. So we can see that some of the salary is $8,039,674. So the pivot table is just making the calculations for us. So I have the sum of salary, but what else do I want to add to this report? Well, I can get these salary by position or by department. I want the salary by department. So I'll click on department here, and notice how it's just providing all the calculations for us. So it's a really nice way to just analyze your data. Well, we can see from this data set here, we can actually sort the data like this. So I'll click on the data tab and I'll sort C to A. And I can see that the IT department has slightly higher salaries than the sales department as well. Now, another thing that we can do, we can also, instead of displaying the sum of the salary, we can also display the percentage of the running total. So we need to go back to the value field settings. So I'll right click here, click on value field settings. We already saw how we can change the sum to the average. I'll go ahead and click on show value as, and right here, we don't have a current calculation in here. If I click on this drop down, maybe I want to show the percentage of the grand total. So I'll go ahead and click here, and I'll go ahead and press OK. And there we go. So now this is showing us the percentage. So the bigger, piece of the pie here. So IT is taking up 23.29% of the pie, whereas HR is 14.52%. So that's how we can change the value to show as a percentage of the grand total. I'm going to reset my table here. So I'll just go ahead and uncheck the department and the salary. I'll go ahead and build out a new table. I want to focus on the performance score. So we can see it's summarizing the performance score for us. I also want to go ahead and analyze the score based on the department in here as well. And I may also go for, let's say, by education level. So there we go. So we're summarizing the performance based on departments and education level as well. I could add the department into the columns, making the table a little easier to read here. Just like we did before, I'll go ahead and change this to the average. And got a lot of decimals in here, so I'll go ahead and fix that as well. This is a number with just one decimal space. And there we go. So if we were to take a look at this data now, we can kind of see that the overall performance score, the average, is 78.6. And we can see for our marketing team had the highest score at 81.7. Now, what I can do is I can make use of what's called a drill down report. And this is a pretty nice tool. So if I wanted to click on this 81.7 here, if I double click on this, this is going to create a new table that I can use for analysis. So I'll go ahead and double click here. And as you can see, it inserts a new worksheet for me. And here's my table. And this table is all about marketing. So that is a drill down report. Here are all of the employees from the marketing department. And we can see their individual scores in here. So with the pivot table, we can double click on any one of those and we'll get some really, really nice reports that we can work with. So feel free to go ahead and double click on any number on your pivot table and go ahead and explore the drill down report and come right back. Another useful tool is a report filter page. Now, in this case, I'm showing the average performance by department and by education level. But what about position as well? What if I wanted to create several different pivot tables based on the actual position? And this way I can get the same detail, but based on the actual position. If I were to add the position, drag that to the filters box here, I can now filter by position. So if I click on the drop down, I just want to see all of this data based on our sales representatives. So I'll click OK. And notice how the numbers have been updated to just focus on that particular position. Now, if I want to take a look at another position, I can simply come in here and change it to the developer. I'll go ahead and press OK. And here we go. But what if I wanted to create several pivot tables for all 5 of our different positions here? So I'll have one pivot table on one worksheet. And that way I can manage these pivot tables independently. Well, that is called a report filter page. If I click here on my pivot table, I'll click on Pivot Table Analyze. And right over here to the far left, we have to click under the options. And here is the Show Report Filter Pages. So first we have to select a place on our pivot table, click on Pivot Table Analyze, and then make our way over to the Options dropdown. And here's the Show Report Filter Pages. Let's see what it says. Doesn't show us any detail right here. That's okay. Well, because I have the position and the filters, this will allow me to generate several different pivot tables. Each pivot table will be based on a specific position. Now, if I did not have this in here, let me go ahead and clear this filter first. Put everything back to normal. Now, if I remove the position here, notice that it's grayed out. So the first step in creating those report filter pages, you must have a field in the filters box. Let's create some separate pivot tables based on position. I'll go ahead and click on the drop down here. I'll click on Show Report Filter Pages. We can see because we have position in here, we can create the report pages. I'll press OK. Here is our first pivot table, accountants only. Here's the next one, developers only, HR managers, marketing lead, and sales. So these pivot tables will behave independently of the others. So it's a nice way, instead of copying your pivot table and trying to paste it, we can create those report filter pages. Now I can go ahead and build out this if I want to. I could even go ahead and just have the department and the education level all in one column. Now that we've analyzed our data, taking a look at different tools of the pivot table, let's go ahead and create a visual. So if I click on my pivot table, I'll go back to pivot table analyze. Here is our pivot chart. I'll go ahead and insert a pivot chart and let's see what it looks like. So I'll click on pivot chart here, and here is a clustered column chart, lots of data in there, but pretty nice to read. Here's a line chart. Here's a pie chart. Well, I'll go for that very first one, which is the column chart here, and I'll go ahead and press OK. So here is my chart, and this is interactive, just like the data charts from module 1. If I just highlight or just move my mouse over the different data bars here, it's giving me the actual values. So this is giving me a nice visual in terms of the average scores based on, in this case, based on the education level. So for our masters, we can see we have higher performance overall, and for HR and marketing, which is pretty cool. Now, my pivot table is tied to the data that's on my pivot chart. So if I make any changes here to my pivot table, my pivot chart should update automatically. For example, I'll click on my pivot table. Maybe I don't want to show the department, maybe just by education level. I'll go ahead and remove the department here. And there we go. We can see the pivot table is showing the average performance score based on degree level. And here we can see our pivot chart has been updated as well. I do have filters here for our pivot chart as well. We can filter by position, and we can also filter by education level. So if I just go for master's and PhD, we can see my pivot chart is updated and my pivot table is updated as well to reflect those filters. So we can filter either from the pivot table or from the pivot chart. I'll go ahead and reset that filter. So I'll clear the filters from my pivot chart, and there we go. Feel free to click on the little chart styles here and choose a different style. And there you go. So that wraps up our module 2. Just as a recap, we're able to take a look at some table tools. We're able to utilize conditional formatting for some color visuals. We're able to take a look at the subtotals tool. And we're able to take a look at data validation as well. And finally, we spent some time taking a look at various pivot table tools. Well, congrats on completing the course. I look forward to seeing all of you in a future Learnit course.